the way I give talks typically is by giving examples. So I don't do slides. And this is informal. So it will be kind of what I did during my summer vacation. It wasn't a summer vacation. It was a whole year of sabbatical. My wife and I, she's also a faculty member. She's in educational policy studies. We arrange it so that our sabbatical schedule is identical so we can go together. And this is the 4th time we've been on sabbatical. Sabbatical's a great thing. If you become faculty members somewhere, you should certainly take advantage of it. Every 7 years, beginning after you have tenure, you have this ability to apply for a year away. And it works very nicely. So this is the 4th time, and this time we split our time between Indonesia for 4 months and then England for 7 months. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our experience in Indonesia, and then I'll move on, mostly talk about England. And these are just notes for myself. So how I spent my sabbatical. So we began in Bandung, Indonesia. Anyone here from Indonesia? Great. So, selamat siang, or it's almost sore. Selamat sore. Bandung is a major city on the island of Java, which is also the island that has Jakarta, which is the capital. Indonesia is composed of thousands of islands, of which about 6 are very large. Java is one of the large ones. Bandung is not too far from Jakarta. It's up in the hills. The climate is very nice there. And we were at Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia, the educational UPI, it's known for short, Education University of Indonesia. It's a well-respected university, and we were associated, well, I got myself associated with the computer science department there, just as a place to sit, and did various things while I was there, trying to interact with the people there and work with, and try to show them things. So I tried unsuccessfully to interact with the chemistry faculty. You might remember I've spoken here about the ACE project. ACE Organic is something I've done with Professor Grossman in chemistry here. Much of what I do these days is computer support for things outside of computer science. And we have, together over a period of more than 10 years now, built a facility for homework for organic chemistry students. But it has the ability to be translated into multiple languages. Much of the instruction around the world for chemistry is in English. But in Indonesia, the instruction is mostly in Indonesian. And so it would make sense to have this facility translated into Indonesian. And the people to do it are the experts, the people who teach organic chemistry. So I showed them this, and they said, oh, wow, that's great. But it never happened that they actually did any of the translation. If we had more time, I would show you the beginnings of how ACE looks and how the translation looks. But if any of you is interested in this as a project, it's still worth doing. The one thing that I did do was, based on something I'd done a few years back, we had a project here called Welfare to Work. And one of the things that I built for that was a little scheduling program. And so there was a faculty member in the university department that I was in who is interested in brokered scheduling. That is, people say what times of day they can meet, and you try to get a time, a 3-hour slot, for example. But maybe you can't find a time that everyone can meet. And so then you start negotiating. Would you be willing, if we paid you such and so, or if we reduced your load or whatever it is, could you make this other time? And so that's what she's interested in doing. But as a back-end processing, she wanted to use my facility. So I can show you how it looks here. Not found. That's not nice. Try this one. There it is. Okay. So what you input is something that looks like this. You say, I want to get 5 adjacent half-hour slots. Each slot is half an hour. The available times are these days of the week and these times of day. And here are the various people. Oliver Wendell Holmes, he's a very important person to be at the meeting. And here's his preferences. He just cannot make Mondays between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. not available on Mondays, or Tuesdays between 3 and 5, and would prefer not to have Thursday from 13:30 to 5. So that's a particular person. And we have Leonard Nimoy, who is a medium, well, pretty important to be there, although of course he died, but oh well. And here's Harry Potter. Copyright restrictions allow me not to say Harry Potter. I didn't say that. And Aristotle. Anyway, each person has some sort of preferences, and then you feed this into the program. So let me just do that. And it tells what's available. Here are the optimal results. So it turns out that Tuesday at 9 o'clock for 5 time slots works fine, as well as several later times. So these are the optimal ones that everyone can make. And if there's a time that isn't optimal, that some people prefer not, it'll show you that in somewhat different format. So anyway, that's the back end. And you can get it in JSON, so you can make it, you can use this as a back end for your program. Yeah.
The 4 to 5 means 5 people or 5 time slots?
5 time slots.
Okay.
For all the people, for 5 time slots, and we specify that time slot is 30 minutes in that day. So I built this so that this faculty member could have her student do her scriptsy. Now, what is scriptsy? This is an obligation that all undergraduates in Indonesia have. It's an undergraduate thesis, and it's meant to be a research thesis. This is a difficulty because they don't really teach research methods. But every student across the country is expected to do a scriptsy. And this faculty member has a student who wants to do a scriptsy based on this. And so that was the case as of November. And the scriptsy was going to be done during January and February. I haven't heard whether it happened or not. So I haven't heard back from them. But at least I did provide a facility, and I think they might be using it.
We may be scheduling the defense side.
That's right. I'm using this to schedule the defense. An interesting thing about talks that I gave there, they are judged as faculty members by attendance at international conferences. Therefore, they host conferences pretty often, and to make them international, they invite people from outside the country to speak. And so there were 2 conferences held there while I was there, and they invited me to give keynote addresses, and that helps make it international. So I gave a few talks, and the titles are here, not that that's that important. I'll be talking more about actually this later on. This one I'll just mention that it was an international seminar on mathematics, science, and computer science education. So I said, fine, schedule me for something in computer science education. And then 2 days before the conference, I said, well, I haven't seen the schedule. And they said, oh, here's the schedule. You're not in computer science, you're in the regular science branch. And so I ended up talking about ACE Organic. Mostly while I was there, I worked at a long distance with someone in New York City, and I'll be talking about that when I talk about my experience in England. So here I am now in Guildford, England. Guildford is a lovely bedroom community to the southwest of London. It's right on the main train line. It's about a 40-minute ride from Guildford train station to Waterloo station in the south of London. So we often found ourselves going into London. The University of Surrey is the name of the institution, and the group I was associated with is the Surrey Morphology Group, headed by Professor Greville Corbett. Morphology can mean all sorts of things. Here it means natural language morphology. This is a group of linguists, and for many years I've been interested in linguistics. In fact, when I went off to graduate school, I asked advice from people. What should I go into? I'm interested in linguistics, I'm interested in computer science. And I ended up going into computer science and keeping the linguistics as a hobby. And so for the last few years, I've been able to put them together again. Morphology is the study of how words are structured to show how they fit into a sentence. English doesn't have very much in the way of morphology. We do distinguish between I see, he sees. That Z ending is a morphological ending, which shows in English that we're in the third person singular. There's not, as I say, a lot of morphology. We have pluralization of nouns also in English. But if you've studied Latin, then you've seen a language with lots and lots of morphology. Well, this is a group of researchers. They only have one of their members who does any teaching. They're mostly just researchers doing various things in morphology. And I worked with every one of them in different projects. So I'll tell you something about what I did while I was there. And all the tools I'm going to demonstrate are actually available online. I'm going to be showing you a version which is just sitting on my laptop computer because I was afraid I might not be able to get a good internet connection here. But they're all actually available. If you want to play with them or you want to come to my office hours and ask me about them, I'm eager to describe this to anyone who wants. I gave a few talks about the tools that I built to the Surrey Morphology group. I happened, there was a conference that they held in January, and I met some people from Leiden University in Holland. And when I visited some friends in Holland, I got myself invited to give a talk there as well. And then one of the former members of the SMG group is now in York, and I met him several times at conferences, and he invited me also to give a talk at York. York is a town about 5 hours by train to the north of London. All right, so I'm going to show you some of these things. And since I'm not expecting that you are linguists, I'll have to describe some of them, but I'll show you examples. Paradigm functional morphology is a way of describing the way a language builds its morphology. It's a formalism which was invented by Professor Gregory Stump, who's in the English department, the linguistics group here. He invented this about 15 years ago. But I built, with his assistance, I built a program which allows you to take the formalism, actually enter it into a program, turn the crank and see what it's generating. People have published now for 15 years theories of languages in PFM, but they've never been able to actually try it out and see if they're actually right or not. And so given this, you can actually try them out. So Oliver Bond is one of the researchers in the SMG, the Surrey Morphology group. And I think his PhD work was on a language called Element. And just as I got there, he was reading the final proof copies of an article that he had submitted that had been accepted. And it was a PFM theory for negation in Element. And so I took what he had and I built that as a formal program, and I can run it. So let me show you that.
Who speaks Element?
I don't remember. I think it's a language from Africa. I think it's in the area of the Sudan, but I'm not sure. So here's the paradigm morphology engine, and here's what I'm going to, well, actually I'm going to upload it from a file because I haven't been in a file here. So browse, file, open. Okay, now I'll just submit it. We can look at the file later if you're interested. So the verb to fight, I'm sorry, the verb to go. And the negative, subject, person one, okay, this means I do not go. And what I computed was récit. It looks like it's a tonal language, so it's récit. And the check mark means that agrees with what his paper said it should be. How about this one? We do not go. Récit, and that also agrees. So this generates, for all the verbs, actually only for the verbs where I know the answer. We only show the values where we know the truth. Although I can generate a lot of others as well, but these are the ones I wanted to check. In every case, the theory gave me what he said, see, except a few, like to catch fish, you all always catch fish. I computed affair, and he gave me affair. They're almost the same. Can you even see the difference? It's the tone on the last syllable. I have neutral tone, he has high tone. Now, I showed this to him, and I think he said, oh yes, my paper has a misprint. But it was too late. He had already submitted it. No one's going to notice. Except me. Here was another one where I computed obera, and he got obera. This first letter here, if you can see it, it's an O. This is written in International Phonetic Alphabet. And there's this funny letter which is a not yet closed O, which is pronounced O. And so I was computing O beta A, and he gave me O beta A. And there was one more place where there was a slight difference. That's actually a major difference. So that's one of the early things I did while I was there. Much of what I did while I was there involved Cratylus. So I'm going to show you Cratylus. Cratylus is a project I've been working on for over a year with Daniel Kaufman of the Endangered Language Alliance in New York City. Endangered languages are ones that are not being spoken by enough people to survive. Now, English will survive, and Bahasa Indonesia, no problem. Even some of the minority languages, like the home language of the people in the area of Java where we were, is Sundanese. But there are enough people who speak it, they pass it on to their children. That's a language that's going to survive. Alamat, I don't even know where it is. That might be an endangered language. Well, Daniel Kaufman's idea is, instead of going out to the wilds of Borneo and finding the few people who speak this language, we live in New York City. There are lots of people who come here from all over the world. I bet we can find someone who speaks this endangered language here, and we can bring the person into our office where we've got high-quality recording equipment, and that's what he does. And so he's done a lot of research. He has also people who do field work in foreign places, but primarily he brings people into his office. Well, this project called Cratylus, it's named after a Greek philosopher, one of the pre-Socratic philosophers, I think, who was famous for not trusting language. He said, when you say fish, what do you really mean by fish? Are you sure you know what it means? So he stopped speaking, he started pointing instead, as if that's any better. But anyway, we had to have a name, so we called it Cratylus. It doesn't stand for anything. But the Cratylus project, which I did a lot of work on, I upgraded it in various ways, its purpose is unified linguistic corpora from diverse data sources. Well, let me show you the whole page here. I'll increase the size a bit. So, as it says, it's a facility to let researchers upload the results of their research. And the research that the investigators of endangered languages, the research that they do, involves building dictionaries, collecting texts like, tell me a folk tale. And we record it, and then we try to figure out where the word boundaries are. Once we know the word boundaries, we indicate the morphological properties of each word. But then, what do you do with it once you've got it? If you've done this in one of the well-known programs like Fieldworks, you can send it to anyone else who has the Fieldworks program. But that's hardly a way of making it available to the outside world. Instead, Cratylus, you can upload these files, and we understand both Fieldworks and a bunch of other standard formats, and I can build converters for unusual formats, and I did that a lot this last year. And then you can display it, and anyone in the web, and that's everyone in the world, can now see it. Of course, there are protections. You can make it private if it's a language you don't want published or you're not sure of your work yet. So I'll show you some examples of that. And I'm going to start with Rezimir. Rezimir is a language spoken in, I think, the Sudan. No, I'm sorry. Rezimir is actually one of the languages of eastern Indonesia. And the person who was researching it was someone at Leiden University. So when I went there, I said, do you have any examples? And they said, yeah, we have Fieldworks, someone who's been using Fieldworks program and working on Rezimir. So I said, fine, give me the data. And I uploaded it, and so I could show them. And so the word I'm going to look for is ibunya, which means the mother. It's the same word in standard Indonesian. And so it was Nazar Udin who gave me the data in February of this year. And so here's an example where someone, I guess I'm not quite sure what these two, the data says this is a name. Here are the words. Matu ina wa in ahura ihawa in ahura et kapai. Okay, there was someone who said ibunya. I think this is a translation of what he said into another language. This is what he said. We can actually listen to it. It's this one. Now, I could have put it on the speakers up there, but it's not that important here. This is someone's recording, which is coordinated with timestamps. And you can also see the person doing it. Well, this one doesn't work. Let's try the next one. There's something wrong. Here it is. So there's this little snippet of a recording. This one, the timestamps are off, so we didn't quite say what we expected. But that's part of what people can upload. So researchers can then see what it was. This is the word, and this is the translation. So this, he spoke in his own language, and this is a translation into standard Indonesian. In fact, it even has abbreviations like this is not pronounced, it's dengan, which means with. So, also, similarly with the mother, similarly with the fathers, already entered into a boat, whatever. That's what he's talking about. But any place where the word ibunya appears, we can search for it, find it. We can find every place where the word malam, which means evening, appears. I just searched for it, and here it is. Today, this evening, and here it is in his language, in Oresmia. There's another place. So there is something which a researcher can then use to display what he has done. Now, behind the scenes, here's something I didn't show the people there because this is the computer science part. I want to show how it actually works. What I have is I've got a converter which can convert arbitrary XML, and the output of Fieldworks is in XML. I convert the XML using a template, which I will show you, in two directions. I convert it into QDDB, Quick and Dirty Database, which I'll show you a little of, and I also convert it into CSS, the cascading style sheets. So I can display things nicely. I can search for them because I have a database, and I can display them the way I want because I've got style sheets. So that particular text format is called Fieldworks Explorer text format, and it begins with a tag, which is document, and underneath that is interlinear text, and underneath that is paragraphs and paragraph. This is called an Xpath expression. For those of you who use XML a lot, you'll recognize that. If you've never seen it before, well, it's fairly new to me too. But it says, once you found an item whose type is title, call that in database a title. And as far as display is concerned, make these vertical if you have more than one of them. If you find something which is of the form words word, that is a word which then has subtypes which you can extract from the XML and put into the database. The database itself looks like, let's see if I can find it here. Here. Let's see, where was I? This window. All right, this is what the QDDB schema looks like. It's not a relational database. It's a, if I had to give it a name, it's a recursive database. Anyway, it says that if you can have more than one word, and every word might have an identifier and might have text, and the text will have both the text language and the text content, and so on. This is all derived from that template. And then I can show you something that has a more interesting use of that. I'll get to that when I show you Skull Sign. But that's how Cradleus stores its data in QDDB format as a result of conversion from either XML or something else. So one of the languages that they're studying is a big project at the SMG on Nuer. Nuer is a South Sudan language. It's a tonal language, and it's not very well understood. So what they gave me is sound files. But the name of the sound file was already some information about what the word was, or what the phrase was. And so I parsed the name of the sound file, turned that into a Cradleus data, and then I take the sound file, convert it from wave, which is very long, into odd vorbis, which is much shorter, and which I can search into the middle of easily. And then I can generate, let me just show you, I'll go back to the display here, and I'll query something in Nuer, and then I'll answer your question. But let's go to Nuer, And let's look for the word, I guess, woman. All right. Here is how to say the pregnant women. It's pregnant woman plural. And we have speaker 2, and who said it twice. So I have 2 different sound files. Here's how it sounds. Right? Here's the same thing in the singular. Hear the difference? I don't either. It's at the very end. It's actually, part of it is the tone, and part of it is the final consonant. But you have to be an expert to hear that difference. And then to make sure that it wasn't influenced by being at the end of an expression, they also often ask their informants, put it in the middle of a sentence. For example, I remember the pregnant women. How would it sound there? Here it is. Or I remember them well. Put an extra word afterwards. So people who are studying Nuer now around the world, and this particular group includes people in Australia and in Scotland, they now have access to this. It's online. So they can now listen to all of these expressions, and I still get more of them as they keep going through all the recordings they've made. And they can listen to them and figure out, if they can, where is the part of this that says I? All they know is what it means. But how do you figure out from the sound, where are the various pieces? That's what they're working on. I'm just helping out. I also built a few other things, like I can build from their file names all of the lexemes. That is a list of all the words that they now have. I won't show you that. It's a pretty obvious thing you can do based on the names of the files. I built a converter for that. All right. Any guess where people speak Skoltsami? Give you a hint. Those 2 A's, they're both pronounced. Sami.
Finland.
Yes, Finland. There are the Finnish languages. It's not just one language, but in the north of Finland are the Sami people, and they have many languages. Skolt is one of their languages. One of the people at the SMG finished his thesis and just published it recently on the morphology, a whole grammar of Skolt Sami. So I read his thesis, at least parts of it, and I then built various things. I built a Catter theory. Catter is another facility that I built with Greg Stump here. It's another way of representing the morphology of words. And so I want to show you this one. There were enough words in his thesis that I was able to actually build a little lookup thing. So I can look up, for example, the word to hear. I can look it up in either Skoltsami or English, but I don't write Skoltsami all that well. So here it is. There's the verb to be heard, called yet. There's to begin to be heard, called yeswe ted. And then the standard verb to hear, kulla. You can see the infinitives. These are stored in the infinitive either and in ed or ad. Well, I can click to see forms. When I do that, it invokes a program. And the program output is all of the forms of this verb, based on my understanding of his grammar. And of course, Tim, this is Tim Feist, Tim looked at this, and at least the ones where he could easily eyeball it, he said, yeah, that looks right, or that looks wrong, until I got it right. And I could also compare it against the charts he had in his book, in those places where he had the charts. So it's kind of weird. I identify that this is a class 1 group A verb. There are many classes and many groups. And here's how to say I hear, we hear, kulam, kulam. When a double letter happens, you pronounce it twice. Kulak, kulbete. Notice sometimes it's 1 L, sometimes it's 2 L, and they can hear the difference. I have difficulty hearing the difference, but a native speaker can tell whether you're saying kulak or kulak. And all of these changes, like here it changes to old, are based on a program which understands how these things are supposed to work. If you're interested in how this is built, if you're interested in Catter, come to my office. I can show you how Catter works. I can show you the actual theory. I also took his book, which he gave me an online copy of, and then I was able to extract his texts. He's got a text of a folk story, how mosquitoes came to Lapland. You've all heard the story? Well, I hadn't either. But if I go back now to Acratylus, and I go to query, and I say that I'm interested in Skoltsami, which is here. And what do I like to test? Let's look for the word reindeer. Again, it's using Cratylus, but I had to build my own special converter here. Here is part of the story. He had visited Lapland and bragged about how good life was there. There were reindeer, dogs, sheep. This is the first mosquito who came back to his home and bragged about how great it was in Lapland, because there's all sorts of animals who have no kind of house or protection. Therefore, it's great for mosquitoes. It's part of the story, right? But the word reindeer appears, and here's the actual word. It's puwokku, and that's the plural nominative of reindeer. The reindeers. And here's another place where the word appears, and it's a one-year-old reindeer. It's a different word. Here's another one-year-old reindeer. So you can see all the places where reindeer appears. And here's the word Sami, which means quite. We can search. Where do we see the word Sami? And here it is. Here it means quite. Here it means quite. Here it means quite. It seems that that word means quite. But it's not to learn the language. This is so you can investigate. If you've got theories about the language, you can now test them. He also was doing something called reference tagging. In English, if I were telling you a story about how the mosquitoes came to Lapland, I would say perhaps the first mosquito came to Lapland, he saw. I wouldn't say the mosquito saw, I'd say he saw. And I'd keep referring to the mosquito as he. Although maybe a while later I'd say, and that mosquito saw, and I would again introduce the noun. Well, in some languages, it is a requirement that once you've introduced the subject, you must refer to it again by a word like he. And in other languages, you have an option. And so what Tim is working on now is comparing the Mian language, which is Papua New Guinea, with Skoltsami and a few other languages to look at how they do referencing. So I'm going to show you a program I wrote for him, which is not Cratylus. Here it is, reference tagging, and I have to find, I'll first show you something in Skoltsami. It's actually two files. There's a text file and a data file. All right, so here is, again, I think it's how mosquitoes came to be in Lapland. And everything which is in gray is something that has a reference possibility. If you mouse over it, you find all the things that refer to the same thing. And you click on it, and you find that the first one is a noun phrase, not one mosquito. And then there's a demonstrative, they. Another noun phrase, mosquitoes, and here is a pronoun. And so you can walk through it and find all the places where mosquitoes are referred to. Here's a different one. This one means spider. Apparently there's spiders in the story. And there's a noun phrase, and then another noun phrase, and then pronouns for a while. Well, that's how it looks in Skoltsami. Let me now show you Mian. Mian is a language which requires that you always use pronouns. You cannot refer to something back with its noun. You've got to give the pronoun for it. And now if I click on one of these, oops, that one disagrees. I get 3 noun phrases in a row for cutting tool. Let's take another one. Right? There's a verb affix noun phrase, and then it's just referred to with the verb. The verb has something on it referring to it. Here's another one. The word woman appears first as a noun phrase, and then appears only as a verb affix from that point forward. So you can use that in order to try to identify patterns and get statistics. These statistics here are based on statistics he's already generated. But this allows him to show people the sorts of results that he wants to talk about. Here's another great example. Wallaby, a mother wallaby. This is Papua New Guinea, but apparently they've got wallabies there. It's not all that far from Australia. And you see that it appears as a noun phrase and then only as a verb affix from then on until the 67th reference, which finally is a noun phrase again. One of the other interesting things about Neon is that it has both gender and classifier. And this is quite unusual for a language to have both. Gender, well, English doesn't have it, but a lot of languages do, like French and German. The book, neuter. The table, masculine. Right? So you distinguish it in some languages. Classifiers appear in languages that, for example, if you want to say 7 balls, you'd use a classifier. You'd say 7 small round things, ball. Because balls are small round things. But if it were 7 houses, you'd use a different classifier. You'd say 7 large things, houses. Right? Very few languages have both. Neon happens to have both. But does it really have both? Well, here's some data. Of the 1,000 or so nouns, 150 of them are masculine, which use a classifier which I'll call the M classifier. 129 of them are feminine and use what I call the F classifier. 62 are of a neuter 1 gender, and they use the M classifier. 142 are N1 and use the long classifier, and so on. Question: is this really are there really 2 separate systems, gender and classifier, or is there really only one? Well, it's kind of in between. Can you measure that? The answer is yes, you can. And I built this. I actually did some mathematical investigation of it, came up with a measure of two-systemness, and you can feed these data in, and you can submit it. And it uses this calculation, which is right here in front of you, and I'm sure you just understood it by looking at it. And it says the answer is no. Well, in my measure, 0 means truly 2 systems. 1 means actually only 1 system. For example, if all masculine nouns used the M classifier and no one else did, if all the neuter nouns used the long classifier and no one else did, then it would really only be 1 system. Well, this is mostly a 1 system thing. And we can compare that with other languages. There are very few to compare with. There's one called Borromeso, which also seems to have 2 systems and is actually closer to being 2 systems. And then with another postdoc there, Helen Sims-Williams, who's interested in ancient Greek, she found a way to use this for a different purpose, but she needed more than 2 systems. So she and I both generalized it. It turns out we generalized it in 2 different ways. They agreed if you only have 2 systems, but they disagreed on 3, 4, and 5. I ended up deciding hers was better, that it was kind of fun to work on that. We can omit these, and I will. And I'll show you at the last something else I've been doing for the last year and a half. Shalom Aleichem was a very important author who died in 1916 and wrote in the language Yiddish. His books have been published several times, but there's no good Unicode version, online version. There is, you can get pictures of his books, but you can get images, but you can't get the texts. But I've got my own optical character recognition program, which I applied in February of last year to the entire works of Shalom Aleichem. It takes about an hour to walk through the 5,000 or so pages, but then it gives you Unicode. Unfortunately, OCR is not perfect, and so you need proofreading. I've crowdsourced the proofreading. And so I will show you a little bit about this in the last minute. Here's a picture of the author. Here are all the various books that he, or the stories he wrote. But actually, I want to show you the status page. We have now gotten to 67% of the full works have been looked at by at least one person. Here's a particular book. This is a serial number in a collection. And each page is a dot. This one, page 14, was proofread both by Helen Bankir and Lukas Fischler. And we can look at that page and see what it looks like now. Here it is. Here's the result. Never mind the left-hand one. This is, in fact, I'm going to change the left-hand. This is the original page, a picture of the page. And here is our OCR. This, you can cut and paste. You can put this into a Word document. You can also search for particular words if you're wondering how a particular word appears. Going back, here's a page which hasn't yet been done. You can see that it's got a bunch of these dots, or these rectangles. That's a sign that the OCR gave up on that letter. I can read most of this, and it's not a lot of mistakes. The thing on the left, now I'll show you, is hints for the proofreader. If it's in yellow, that means it's very close to a word that really exists in my dictionary. Why don't you try that word instead? You click on it, and it changes the word here to what I suggested. And most of these suggestions are just right, so you don't have to worry about introducing funny alphabets. But here, some of these I couldn't get right. And so here, you'd have to turn on a particular keyboard and put in the right letter there. And once you're finished, you submit it. And then I use Subversion to store all of these. All right, so if you're interested in how I did that in the OCR program, you've got your own stuff you want to OCR in any language, I'd be glad to show you that. But we're out of time now. Stay tuned and keep current next week. Yeah.